Welcome to Legendary Physique. I'm Richard Baldwin, your host, and I'm talking to Jerry Braden about his October Applied Metabolics. And Jerry, I'll tell you what, that one of the articles you had in last month's really gave the secrets to guys over 40 for the best supplements. It was called the supplement combination that boosts gains in men over age 40. And I'll tell you what I liked about the article was you and I have had some discussions from time to time about this stuff, and that article kind of summed up the things you told me I should be taking, and then I started taking.
Right. Well, the scientists that kind of study muscle physiology, they're not interested in producing Mr. Olympia physiques, but what they're interested in is helping men preserve muscle as they age, to prevent this condition called sarcopenia. I should say men and women, because it affects women too. And, sarcopenia literally means a loss of lean mass with age. And unfortunately, it's a lot more serious than people think,
But didn't that study that you talked about had guys over 72 gaining muscle?
Yeah, it's true. They actually, which is unheard of, because a lot of the medical texts will tell you that it's very, very difficult to gain any significant amount of muscle past age 50. I mean, they'll tell you that, but, yet if you supply them with the right, let's say, combination of nutrients combined with resistance exercise, they make surprising amount of gains. I mean, nobody really can explain this, except it could be some sort of epigenetic connection where you're turning off certain, let's say, muscle breakdown genes and turning on muscle anabolic genes, and that could explain it. You can do that through nutrition, believe it or not. They didn't know that years ago, but now they know it. So, the truth of the matter is that, at age 72, let's put the cards on the table. You're not going to be able to train and compete against Phil Heath.
Yeah. I mean, look at the couple of guys that have come back to competition. They didn't look anywhere near what they did when they competed before. Well, not to name any names.
Yeah, I commented that in videos. If you notice, the thing that these guys had in common, and again, I won't mention names either, but the thing they had in common was the lower body was noticeably shrunk, atrophied, where some of their muscle groups actually looked almost like they did 25 years ago, but the legs were completely off. And that's the way it works. See, when you lose muscle, it starts from the feet up. In other words, your body tends to burn up the muscle in your lower body, calves, thighs, and then in your upper body, it starts in the forearms and heads towards the torso. That's where you start to lose muscle, see?
Yeah.
And the reason for this is that the body wants to spare what it considers the most important lean mass, which is your internal organs. Your heart and everything, that's also made of muscle. So it'll burn up your, let's say, your arms and your legs to spare but once you lose enough muscle in the legs and arms, and the protein catabolism does move to the torso or the internal organs, that's when you die. This is what happens with many women who get anorexia nervosa. They burn off just about all the lean tissue in their legs and arms. They get reed thin. Then the muscle loss starts to head towards the internal organs. When it affects the heart, they die. That's what happened to the famous singer Karen Carpenter. You might remember her years ago.
Oh yeah. Oh, I saw pictures of her. I just couldn't believe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she was like a stick.
Skeleton. Yeah.
It's a very sad. It's a psychological illness, And the funny thing is, they actually apply some of it to bodybuilders. They call it bigorexia. Where these bodybuilders, like a guy like, let's say, the size of Phil Heath or Big Ramey, will look in the mirror and say, "I'm still too small."
Yeah. Don't they call it dysmorphia too?
Yeah, that's body dysmorphia is another term for it.
Yeah, but I definitely got that.
I mean, no, I have to admit having it too, because although in my case some of it's real, because like when it's warm out here, I walk around in shorts, and I used to have really big legs. I mean, and sometimes I'll be walking my dogs and I'll pass a window where I can see a reflection of my legs, and at first I think there's something wrong with the window. I said, "No, please tell me those stick legs are not. Where's my thighs? Where's my thigh man?"
Well, I'll tell you what. This article though that you had in last month, that's got some pretty good information about the nutritional part to fight sarcopenia, but also you constantly have these great articles on weight routines, also lifting routines. But what do you got for October for us? I'm excited.
I got some real good stuff for October. Now,
you always do.
the first article actually relates to exactly what we're talking about. Because, if you look at the causes, now what causes muscle loss with age? What causes sarcopenia? Believe it or not, they think one of the main factors is what they call systemic low-grade inflammation, where you get this inflammation all over your body. When that happens, your body secretes these things called inflammatory cytokines, which are proteins produced by the immune system that unfortunately have catabolic or breakdown effects in muscle. Now, so the first article, and well, besides that, they now know that systemic inflammation is at the root of every degenerative disease, including cardiovascular disease, cancer, even Alzheimer's disease. All these things, diabetes, all these things have a root in systemic inflammation. In other words, it's not like the acute inflammation you get, like, when you hurt yourself and it gets all and stuff. That's a localized acute. That's acute inflammation. Systemic is low grade, where you'll be walking around, you don't feel the inflammation, except you might get some minor pains and aches and all that stuff, but it's causing tremendous damage. So I say to myself, now, what can you do about this? You don't want to take anti-inflammatory drugs all the time, like ibuprofen or non-steroidal.
That's bad for your liver, isn't it?
Yeah, they well, they're especially hard on the kidneys.
That's right.
Bodybuilders who've used a lot of that stuff have actually had to get kidney transplants.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to resort to that. You certainly don't want to start injecting yourself with cortisol, because that's a catabolic steroid. It's like putting oil on the flame. That's going to make that stimulates myostatin. It helps it's terrible to take if you want any kind of muscle. So that leaves what can you do to control the symptoms? And I realized that the best way is through diet, nutrition. So the first article I called the anti-inflammatory diet, and basically I put everything known to man on how you can nutrition to control systemic inflammation. Now, I'll tell you, without giving away the whole article, there's some points that some people might be taken aback by. For example, the truth of the matter is that the typical high protein diet consumed by people involved in resistance exercise, they're bodybuilders or just people that are looking to get in shape, the high protein diet, unfortunately, tends to be inflammatory. The breakdown, the elemental sources of protein are acids, amino acids.
Yeah.
So, if you're eating a lot of protein, unfortunately, but, in this article, I describe ways around this where you can have your high protein diet, yet also control systemic inflammation. And if you don't want to eat the certain foods and diets that I recommend, I also include certain supplements, spices, natural supplements that will battle these inflammatory chemicals that cause systemic inflammation. So the net effect, what all this leads up to, is if you follow the guidelines that I talk about in this article, I think you will lower systemic inflammation by at least 50%, possibly even up to 75%.
Oh, I can't wait to read that one. Let me tell you.
And the funny thing is, it's not that difficult. Yeah. It's not something, you don't have to be a vegan or anything like that. But you just have to eat a certain way and avoid certain foods.
Great.
That's about it. It's actually very easy to do. And I actually describe in detail 2 particular diets. You have your choice that you can use that'll work very fast.
Great. Sounds like it's coming just in time for me.
Oh, yeah, me too. Hey, listen, believe me, I do have systemic inflammation. I feel it. So anyway, the next article, Richard, did you ever hear this thing about how they say, I'm sure you've heard it over the years, where they say, the most dangerous steroids are oral anabolic steroids because they're hard on your liver.
Yeah.
But the injectables, they're completely safe. You don't have to worry about them because they bypass the liver. Yeah. They're not going to hurt you, right? In fact, I had a debate with a guy on Facebook about a month ago, this young kid who was telling people to take 4 grams a day of decadralin. He says there's no side effects. 4 grams a day. That's massive amount. Not even the pro bodybuilders use that kind of amount.
But it's not that it bypasses the liver. Doesn't everything still go through the liver?
Everything still goes through the liver.
It's just it doesn't have that 17 something or
17
other.
Alpha, exactly, 17 alpha acylate.
Yeah.
That's the reason why oral steroids aren't broken down rapidly in the liver, because of the structural change. 17 alpha acylation is one of them that prevents, and that's what causes the problems with oral steroids. because they're not rapidly broken down, if you take a certain quantity of them, they're going to build up in the liver and cause a liver inflammation.
But that's formulated so it can get through your gastric system, right?
Exactly. And
but
also,
it's bad for it. Yeah. Okay.
But it's also formulated to have it's a sustained action. See, this is why oral steroids and injectables work, and most of the testosterone boosting supplements don't, because the actual steroids provide sustained anabolic activity, whereas the testosterone supplements, they might boost your testosterone for an hour or so, but then you're right back down, and that's not going to do anything. That's not going to do a damn thing.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, in this article, I talk about why injectable steroids are not quite as safe as people believe. I go into all the reasons. I compare them to orals. And I also discuss a case study of a bodybuilder who used a very, very popular steroid in a low dose, and yet he got the same liver effects that you get from taking oral steroids. He didn't die or anything, but he had severe liver inflammation. So that's the next article. The third article, here's another one that I want to ask you. Have you ever gone on, you must have seen this on the web, the internet, various sites where they'll have some so-called pseudo-experts saying, you can't outrun a bad diet. No amount of exercise can make up for a bad diet. You ever heard that statement? Now, I always wondered about that, because I say to myself, now I interpret that as saying that unless you diet, no amount of exercise is going to help you control body fat or lose body fat. No amount.
Yeah.
You have to diet. That's the way I interpret that statement. Okay. And it's so obviously nonsensical. Now, all you have to do is look at extreme measures of people. For example, look at the Tour de France cyclists.
Yeah.
One day, these guys they've had their calories measured. They burn up 15,000 calories in one day in the Tour de France, right? Do you remember the swimmer? What was his name?
Yeah, but how many miles a day do they go?
Oh my God, who knows?
That's different than these little weasel exercises that I see in the gym while these guys are eating donuts after they. I worked in a spa one time, and these ladies would come in and just mess around a little bit, and then they'd go and eat some cake or something. I'm going like, well, you just ruined what you did because you didn't do enough.
Oh, that's why you see that all the time. You see these. I see people, the trainers in gym, with obese clients year after year. These guys stay obese.
Yeah.
They don't lose one droplet of fat. The reason, because they think if they pay their trainers to train them, that gives them license to, after they leave the gym, to go have a large pizza or a quart of ice cream.
Well, I know that doesn't apply to people that cyclists like that, or any Olympic champion, because of the hours and hours like swimmers. I mean, how much do they eat?
I was just going to mention, that kid, I can't remember his name offhand. I mentioned the guy who won 8 gold medals. I don't remember the real skinny, tall kid. He was taking in 12,000 calories a day, but he would practice when he practiced his swims. He'd swim 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
8 hours a day.
Yeah.
So here's my point. Okay, admittedly, these athletes are extreme. They're at the extreme. The average person is not going to work out 8 hours a day. If you did, and you could eat anything you want. You would burn it off because it's calories in versus calories out. Nobody argues that point.
Yeah.
Now, but here's the point. The point is, can you do, and this is the point of this article, can you do a much lesser degree of exercise, an amount that's accessible to the average person on the street, not the world-class athlete? Can a certain amount of exercise actually offset the terrible health effects of eating really bad food? I'm talking like fast food, like McDonald's and donuts and all that kind of, and that's what I discuss in this article. And, when you read the article, you'll see the answer. But let me put it this way. I'll just say briefly, the notion that, that dieting is everything is only partially true. Yes, you do have to control your diet to lose body fat efficiently, but to say that exercise is useless, and I've seen the word used. They don't say it doesn't help. They say it's useless, which just is so ridiculous. I can't believe.
Well, I see people that diet, but they don't weight train, and they lose muscle as well as fat.
Well, it's
got to be a combination.
If you diet, I'll give you a flat figure. If you diet and don't do any exercise, 50% of your weight loss is lean mass, muscle. And you know what happens when you do that?
I see it all the time.
You know what happens when you do that? Immediate weight regain as soon as you start eating it. Because when you lose muscle, your resting metabolism drops so low that as soon as you return to, I'm not talking about overeating, I'm talking about regular eating. where you're not on a restricted calorie diet, as soon as you go back to it, you're going to blow up. This is what happened to Oprah Winfrey years ago. She lost all her body fat, but she didn't do any exercise. In fact, on her TV show, she wheeled out. She lost 67 pounds of fat. To illustrate it, she opened the show by wheeling out a wheelbarrow containing 67 pounds of fat. She was very proud, but then she went back. She didn't exercise. She went back to her regular eating, and she went up. Within about 2 months, she was up to 240 pounds. Got the fat right back and gained more. And not only did she get the fat back, she gained even more fat. So
that's typical.
Yeah. So then I round some of these articles are fairly long, so I rounded out with a shorter article at the end, what I call basically it's research briefs, where I discuss some recent research that's pertainable to somebody who's involved in exercise or bodybuilding, because a lot of these science conferences, they present good information, but the problem is you have to weed it out because a lot of it is not at all applicable to people involved in exercise. A lot of it involves just rat studies, which again is not really useful because it doesn't necessarily apply to humans. Yeah. Or the third category is totally, this is something that's of recent origin, is you have these completely commercialized studies that are sponsored by, let's say, food supplement companies, which are just thinly disguised ads. I mean, the whole thing, if you look at it carefully, they don't compare it to any other product but their own. I mean,
but you know what? You just pointed out why I started subscribing to your newsletter when I found out about it. Right. Because you let us know if a study's bogus like that.
Not only that, but I won't even write about those studies. Yeah. The only way I'll write about a commercially sponsored study is if the controls, in other words, if the design of the study is so solid that I can't detect any bias at all from the company that paid for it or sponsored it, then I will write about it. And that's very
sometimes
rare.
You mention some of those bogus ones that let us know it's bogus.
Oh, yeah. I talk about it all the time because, see, a lot of these companies will use these studies in their ads to sell their products. And people who don't know about how to interpret science studies will figure, oh, well, it's a science study, so it must be true. That's not necessarily the case. A surprising amount of science studies published in major journals have no validity whatsoever. One scientist recently estimated as much as 60% of studies published today have absolutely no true scientific validity. That's shocking. What I try to do for the newsletter is find the studies that do have validity, the other 40% that do have validity, and I won't write about the junkie studies.
Well, that's a big controversy in the post-secondary, in the academic world, is the fact that there's so much pressure to publish, plus you get companies that pay for studies, and then they're shifted toward their products or whatever. So it is a problem that a lot of people are calling attention to right now, I think.
Well, isn't there an old there's an old statement called "publish or perish," where people, like, they used to have it years ago, where even the tenured professors, to retain any type of credence, they had to regularly publish in professional journals. Yeah. Of course, from a writer's perspective, I think it's kind of disgusting as a professional writer, because these researchers work their asses off on these studies. Of course, the truth of the matter is, this is something a lot of people don't know, the bulk of the footwork is done by graduate students, whereas the professors get the full credit, but most of the footwork is done by graduate students on these studies. Yeah. But the point being is that, the more studies these guys have appearing, the more credence they have as so-called experts. So, and also that there's this kind of fight that, the way things are today, grant money is tight. So, there's this rush to try and get as much grant money as they can. And that, unfortunately, causes a lot of crappy studies to be published simply to get some money, to make some money on it.
I just read an article by Susan Hack, a humanities professor, professor of philosophy, and she was talking all about these sorts of things that are a problem in academia.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge problem. Yeah. And unfortunately, like I say, the public doesn't know about this. I mean, to them, a science study is a science study.
Well, it's making them doubt all of them, though.
Oh, you mean all the studies?
Yeah. The more and more of the general public is doubting science in general because they'll hear about some of these bogus studies.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Especially,
That's why they need to get your newsletter.
Yeah, well, I can guarantee anyone who reads my newsletter, as you well know, is getting the 100% truth. I have no access to grind. I'm not involved with any companies. Nobody's paying me off. So I can afford to tell the truth, and I won't pull any punches. If something is garbage, I'll call it garbage.
When I was in the gym today, somebody came up to me and said, "Man, my wife told me she saw you the other day in the gym, and you were looking fit and younger than ever." I said, "Well, I don't know about the younger than ever, but I'm keeping fit." And one of the reasons is because of your newsletter, because I read it and I follow the advice.
Right. It's anybody who does. I mean, you're a world-class bodybuilder, but even people that don't aspire to that just want to keep in shape or be healthy, they're going to get benefits. Like I've said many times before, I don't care what your level of education or experience, every issue of my newsletter, you will learn something new. And the reason I can state that is because I've been studying this stuff for over 50 years myself. And when I do my research for the newsletter, without fail, every time I always learn a tremendous amount of information just in doing the research that I didn't know myself.
Well, so things have changed so much in the last 50 years, it's not even funny, because so many people now are doing valid studies in nutrition and in exercise. But you just have to have somebody like you to weed through all of it and figure out the stuff that really works. Well, Jerry, it sounds like a really great newsletter. It was great talking to you again, and I can't wait for your next one. But right now, I can't wait to read this one.
Well, it'll be coming out October 1st, Richard.
Okay. So. Well, I'll be looking at that article, especially on the anti-inflammatory.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Diet, yeah. All right, great talking to you, and we'll see you again next month. If you want the latest in exercise and nutrition science, then sign up for Jerry Bradenham's Applied Metabolics newsletter.